Hey guys, welcome to another baking episode of Andrew's Art Duchy. Today I'm going to be making a German chocolate cake from scratch, and we're going to be going through it together, step by step.
So this is a traditional cake consisting of light airy chocolate layers, and it's stacked and topped with a coconut pecan frosting.
So when I say traditional, I do want to clarify, I don't mean traditionally German. This is an American cake. The only reason we call it that is because it uses a special kind of sweet dark chocolate invented by Texas baker Samuel German in, I believe, 1852. Got a lot of relatives in Germany, and I don't want them to watch this video and be very confused, so just had to point that out. Anyway, let's get started.
So this cake actually uses quite a lot of ingredients, luckily all of which are pretty easy to find. The only one you might have trouble with is actually the sweet German chocolate, but if you can't find it, feel free to use the more widely available semi-sweet as an alternative. If you'd like a full ingredient and measurement breakdown for this cake, look no further than the description below. So I'm going to kick things off today by softening the German chocolate in the microwave for about 30 seconds. Next I'll take some hot coffee and pour it over the remaining bits, stirring everything until it's nice and smooth, and I'll set it aside to cool.
Next we'll be taking the eggs and separating the yolks from the whites.
I want to be really careful when I'm separating my eggs, otherwise I'm not going to be able to get the whites to rise properly. Now I'm going to go in and whisk the egg whites on high for about 3 minutes. And when it gets to the consistency where it's forming these soft peaks, it is done. Next I want to sift together all of my dry ingredients, starting with the flour. And after that I'll add some cocoa powder. And I'll follow that up with a little salt, baking soda, and baking powder. Now that it's all sifted, I'll give it a final stir.
Okay, so everything is kind of prepared for my KitchenAid mixer now. Today I'm going to be using the whisk attachment, and I'm going to start by creaming the butter, so let's get this on there.
Quick shout out to my buddy Jim. He had this old KitchenAid lying around, gifted it to me, I cleaned it up, and it's been a lifesaver. It really cuts down on the handiwork, especially for somebody like me who bakes a lot. Once the butter has creamed and lightened in color, it's time to add in my sour cream, followed by the sugar. I really should have turned the speed down. As you can see, I made a giant cloud of sugar everywhere. Made kind of a mess. And occasionally I want to pause it and scrape down the sides of the bowl just to make sure everything's getting mixed properly.
Now that it's nicely creamed together, I can add in the egg yolks one at a time.
Basically at this stage I'm just adding in all the wet ingredients, starting with the eggs, some oil for additional moisture, and vanilla for flavor. And now that the chocolate and coffee mixture has cooled, I'll add that as well. After that, I'll take that big bowl of dry ingredients and my buttermilk, adding them a little bit at a time, alternating between the two. This helps me to avoid getting a glutinous bread-like consistency, and I really don't want to overmix at this stage.
Whew, almost done. I just gotta take the batter now, and I'm going to fold in my egg whites.
I'll do a final little check for anything lingering at the bottom, and the key is to be super gentle as I fold in the egg whites. Again, I don't want to overmix at this stage.
Like a pillowy cloud.
So I'm going to be using 3 8-inch pans. I lined them with wax paper and buttered and floured them to avoid any sticking. Wow, this batter already smells so good. Anyway, I'm going to divvy it up between the pans evenly, pushing it to the edges and smoothing the top. Going to toss these in the oven at 350 degrees for about 40 minutes. Okay, so these are looking done, and I can check by giving the top a little tap. Got some nice springy action there, so they are good to go. I'll use a butter knife to release them from the pans, and then transfer them to a wire rack to cool. The egg whites in this give it an airy but delicate texture, so I want to be really careful. I did get a couple cracks, but that's okay. I can disguise it when I frost the cake.
Alrighty, now that I've got the cakes back there cooling, it is time to get started on the coconut pecan frosting. It should be really interesting. It actually uses egg yolks, which is nothing I've ever heard of before in a frosting, so let's see how it turns out.
For a full list of the frosting ingredients, check the description below. So step 1 is to take my pecans and I'm going to chop them up into little bits, nothing too fine, just a bunch of small to medium-sized chunks. I'm now going to toast my pecans on the stovetop for a couple of minutes. You know they're done when you get a really amazing aroma in the kitchen. And then into a pot, I'm going to turn the burner on medium and put in a can of evaporated milk. And to this, I want to add my butter as well as my egg yolks. Once that's in there, I'll add in brown sugar, and I'm going to keep whisking. I don't want to stop because of the eggs or they could curdle. I'm going to add in a little salt. This is going to take a while to thicken, just to give you a heads up. It took me about 10 minutes, but eventually it's going to come together and give me kind of a dulce de leche consistency. And into the mixture, while it's still hot, I'm going to add the shredded coconut as well as my toasted pecans. Give all of this a nice little stir, and I'm going to transfer it to a bowl to fully cool before I use it on the cake.
Alright, we're in the home stretch now. It's time to stack the cake. I've got a cake turnstile here, an 8-inch cake board, offset spatula, and I want to quickly talk about how we can dress a German chocolate cake. Typically, people are just going to take each layer and put a bit of the coconut pecan frosting between each on the top. They might even coat the sides, or you could leave the sides bare like a naked cake. And then some people add a bit of chocolate buttercream on the outside, which is what I'm going to be doing today.
So I actually whipped up these buttercreams last night, and I'm going to start by putting a little bit on my turnstile and the cake board to keep things in place. Try to always make your own frostings. They're going to really taste so much better than the ones you get at the store. So I'm going to add my most cracked layer on the bottom, so the weight above will give it some added strength. I'm going to be applying a thin layer of buttercream, and on top of that, I'll be adding really generous amounts of the coconut pecan frosting. Don't want to waste a single drop. It's really the highlight of this cake. So I'll just go in and kind of smooth everything evenly over the surface, working my way up layer by layer, occasionally checking to see if everything's in alignment until I reach the top and have finished all 3 layers of the cake. So minus the buttercream, this is actually kind of what the traditional cake is supposed to look like. It's just the 3 chocolate layers and the coconut pecan frosting. And as much as I want to eat this right now, this is a good chance to practice my cake decorating, so I'm going for a 2-tone chocolate buttercream effect. Applying the darker tone on the bottom half, smoothing that out, and applying the lighter tone on the top half. Then I'm going to go in with my cake scraper. I'm not going for perfection. I could spend a lot of time making this perfect, but I'm okay with kind of a homemade look in keeping with the original cake. I've got my really nifty vintage cake stand here, which is going to lend a little bit of class to even the most rustic of cakes.
I've never tried to move a cake this tall before, so I am a little nervous. Let's see how this goes.
When decorating the cake, it's always fun to use the ingredients found within as ornamentation on the outside. And you're not going to accidentally kill someone with a nut allergy. Anyway, I'm adding a little bit of piping up here and topping it off with some shredded coconut.
So here she is, my finished German chocolate cake. It was a lot of fun decorating it, but not gonna lie, I have been dying to eat this, so let's dig in and have a slice.
This looks so good, but how does it taste? It's pretty darn good. It's got kind of actually a subtle chocolatey flavor, not overpowering. The coconut pecan frosting has a nice crunchy texture, and that contrasts nicely with the smooth buttercream. Thank you for joining me on this bake today, and I hope you'll give this cake a try yourself. Until next time, bye-bye.